There's a certain silence in a man who never grew as tall as the world told him he should. He walks into rooms where heads turn toward someone else. He dates women who say, "You're amazing," then disappear. He scrolls through photos of taller men with louder lives. And even though he laughs, works hard, even leads, something inside him still whispers, "Not enough." You've felt that, haven't you? The quiet ache of being overlooked, the shame you never chose but learned to carry, not because you weren't strong, but because in a world obsessed with appearances, your worth was measured by inches. And maybe you started believing it, but what if you didn't have to? He didn't say it out loud, but he carried it like weight under his skin. The feeling of being too short, too invisible, too easy to pass by. It showed up in the way he straightened his back in photos, stood on the balls of his feet in group pictures, laughed extra loud in crowds just to be noticed. He worked harder than everyone in the room, earned more, spoke well, hit the gym. But when she chose someone else, someone taller, his confidence cracked just a little deeper, not because he needed her to validate him, but because it confirmed the fear that maybe, no matter what he did, he would never be enough in the eyes of the world. And this isn't just his story. It's the quiet story of millions of men who've spent years building their lives around a single perceived flaw they had no control over. But what if I told you that flaw isn't the problem? That maybe the thing that's been quietly haunting you, the thing you think makes you small, could become the exact fire that makes you unstoppable. The world will always have standards, but a man who chooses to live by his own, quietly, firmly, relentlessly, becomes the kind of man the world can't ignore. Breaking bones to rebuild self-worth. We live in an era where everything is customizable. Our clothes, our online personas, even our bodies. In the film Materialists, Pedro Pascal's character Harry delivers a quiet confession. He had surgery to become 6 inches taller, not because he was poor, not because he was weak, but because despite wealth, style, and confidence, he still felt small in the one game that kept defeating him, love. That wasn't just clever screenwriting, it was truth, wrapped in fiction. Because this story doesn't end with a movie. It starts in reality, with real men, real pain, and real sacrifice. The surgery, it's not cosmetic like a nose job or teeth whitening. It's medieval in origin, once used to correct deformities. Now it's rebranded as an upgrade. The Elizarov technique. It sounds clinical, controlled. But what it really means is this. They break your bones on purpose, then drill metal rods into your legs, and stretch them millimeter by millimeter, forcing your body to regrow itself. For 6 months, you learn to hurt in new ways. Sleep becomes a battle. Nerve endings scream. You watch your reflection shift, but not always in ways you expect. Your thighs grow too long for your calves. You walk differently. And sometimes you walk with a limp that never leaves. The cost, financially, anywhere between $75,000 and $250,000. Physically, half a year of healing that may never feel finished. Emotionally, a lifetime of wondering if it was really you they love now, or the new height you paid to wear. And yet, men do it. Men like John Lovedale, a 40-year-old engineer, stable career, solid life, but something in him still felt unfinished. So he let them break his legs. He let them drill through muscle, stretch nerves, tear fascia. He gained 3 inches and a story he'd never forget. He said it was worth it, not because he became stronger, but because for the first time he felt seen. That word echoes louder than the drill. Seen. Like we've been living in the shadows of other men, of stereotypes, of lies told to us since we were boys. You have to be tall to be chosen. You have to be tall to be powerful. You have to be tall to be loved. So we build careers, hit the gym, wear lifts in our shoes, crack jokes in group chats, break bones in surgery, not for health, not for performance, but for visibility. We're not trying to be gods. We just don't want to feel invisible anymore. But here's the thing they don't tell you in the consultation room. What happens when you're finally seen and still feel empty? Because stretching bone doesn't always stretch belief. And if you still carry the illusion that you're not enough, you'll find new reasons to doubt yourself. Even in a taller body, it won't be your height next time, it'll be your income, your hairline. The way she laughed at someone else's joke. You'll keep chasing fixes until you're nothing but fragments held together by want. But what if, instead of breaking bones, we broke the illusion? The illusion that says you have to be more than what you are. The illusion that your value lives in centimeters. The illusion that love is only reserved for the tallest among us. Stoic philosophy teaches us we don't control what others prefer, but we do control what we believe. And when you stop measuring your worth in shadows cast by other men, you become impossible to shrink. Your frame may be small, but your presence, it expands, not through surgeries, but through stillness, discipline, deciding every day that your soul is not up for negotiation. You don't need to break to be worthy. You only need to stop believing the lie that you aren't already. You can stretch your bones, but unless you stretch your beliefs, you'll always walk in someone else's shadow. Height dysphoria. When the mirror lies, there's something uniquely cruel about a mirror. Not because it lies outright, but because it whispers a version of the truth we're not ready to hear. For some men, the mirror reflects more than their frame. It reflects a verdict, one not handed down by nature, but by culture, comparison, and a quiet desperation for belonging. They call it height dysphoria, a psychological pain rooted not in reality, but in perception. The average American man stands around 5'9". That's not short. In evolutionary terms, it's average, it's stable, it's capable. But the modern mind doesn't measure in functionality. It measures in fantasy. And in that fantasy, 6 feet has become more than a number. It's a prophecy, a mark of dominance, a signal of desirability, and anything beneath it, somehow lacking. So what does a man do when he looks in the mirror and doesn't see a flaw but feels one anyway? He doubts. He spirals. He starts to think maybe the problem isn't the world, but his bones. That maybe, just maybe, life would finally start loving him back if he added 2 inches to his legs. That maybe women would lean in instead of away. That respect would come faster, handshakes firmer, rooms quieter when he speaks. And the saddest part? These thoughts don't belong to shallow, narcissistic men. They belong to the quiet ones, the kind ones, the ones who were passed over too many times, humiliated in locker rooms, ignored in dating apps, or mocked by taller men who said, "You're cool, but I need someone I can wear heels next to." These are men who learned early that if they couldn't rise in the world, maybe they could at least rise in height. One of them, a 33-year-old accountant named Chris, stood 5'7", not short, just not tall. His dating profile got ignored. He was told by a date to his face, "You're great, but I just prefer someone over 6 feet." After years of therapy, gym sessions, self-help books, and silently swallowing the shame, he opted for limb-lengthening surgery twice, thighs first, then shins. He spent nearly 2 years recovering, spending hours a day turning a dial that slowly pulled his bones apart. He said the pain was like being stabbed by your own body from the inside. Today, he's 6'1", but he walks with a limp. He can't run anymore. His knees ache in the rain. His mother cries when she sees his scars. And sometimes at night he lies awake wondering, did I change myself or just rearrange my pain? Here's where Stoic philosophy cuts through the fog like a blade. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What if the very thing we try to escape, our perceived lack, our physical limits, is the exact ground where our strength is supposed to grow? You cannot control the length of your legs. You can control how you walk into a room. You cannot dictate how others perceive you, but you can decide what you radiate. And that energy, that posture, that depth of presence, no surgery can replicate it. No mirror can define it. No culture can steal it unless you let it. So ask yourself, not how tall am I, but what am I standing for? If your soul stood upright, would it tower above the world's expectations, or would it still shrink beneath them? The Stoics weren't interested in bodies. They were interested in control, the kind that lives inside. Epictetus was a slave. His body was beaten. His leg was twisted from abuse. But his mind, untouchable. His spirit, immovable. He wrote not with bitterness, but clarity. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from needing to be more than you are. That's the great lie of height dysphoria. Not that you are too short, but that being short is something shameful. And once that belief takes root, it doesn't matter how many inches you gain. You'll always feel one step behind. What heals that? Not a taller skeleton, but a truer sense of self. Not longer legs, but deeper roots. You are not your reflection. You are not your measurement. You are not the rejection someone once handed you like a verdict. You are the man who chooses each day how to carry himself with quiet strength, with earned dignity, with the kind of presence that doesn't chase validation but commands it. Maybe the real transformation isn't stretching your bones. Maybe it's stretching your belief about what makes a man powerful. And maybe, just maybe, when you stop chasing height, you finally begin to rise. The inner height that no one measures. There's a moment in every man's life when he looks in the mirror and wonders, is this enough? Not just height, but presence, worth. The quiet pressure to be more, taller, stronger, richer, louder, settles like dust on the soul. In the ancient world, there was a man named Epictetus. He was born into slavery. His leg was crippled, twisted by abuse, never to be right again. But unlike the men who pay surgeons to stretch their limbs today, he never once lamented his stature. He did not ask to be fixed. He asked to be free. And freedom, he discovered, wasn't found in the symmetry of bone. It was found in the strength of the mind. Epictetus became a Stoic not because he could walk tall, but because he stood firm. When others chased wealth, he pursued wisdom. When others cried out at injustice, he trained himself to control his own response. He could not control the world, but he could control his reaction to it. And in that space between stimulus and response, he found his power. This is what Stoicism teaches us. What matters most is not the length of your limbs, but the length of your character. In a world obsessed with image, this sounds radical, maybe even foolish, because men today are taught early that size matters. That power comes from being physically imposing, socially dominant, sexually desirable. And so we chase it. In the gym, in the boardroom, on dating apps, even in the operating room, where we break our own bones to meet a measurement that no one will ever write on our tombstone. But Stoicism offers a different metric, one that no tape measure can capture. Marcus Aurelius ruled over the largest empire on earth. He could have declared himself a god, surrounded himself with flattery and indulgence. Instead, he wrote nightly in his journal, "You are a man, not a god. Be humble, be just, be disciplined." He reminded himself that power is fleeting, praise is empty, and only virtue remains. That's the kind of man this world is starving for. Not one who grows taller, but one who grows steadier, who holds his ground in storms, who does not collapse when ignored, who does not need to prove his height, because his depth is what defines him. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better, to feel stronger, to carry yourself with confidence. But when your worth depends on a number, on 6 feet instead of 5'10", you've already lost the inner game. Because numbers change, they fade. But the man who governs his mind, he becomes immortal in his own way, untouchable, free. You don't need to stretch your bones to be seen. You need to stretch your courage, your patience, your self-respect. The man who trains his soul becomes unshakable, not because he stands above others, but because he no longer needs to. So if you're 5'6" or 6'2", it doesn't matter. Your bones do not make you a man, your choices do. Your posture toward life does. Your ability to remain calm when mocked, kind when rejected, disciplined when tired. That's what makes you tall in a way the world can't measure. And no surgeon can give you that. It takes time, stillness, brutal honesty. It takes the courage to look inward and say, I will no longer chase shadows. I will become the kind of man I respect, even if no one else notices. That's height, that's power, and that is what the Stoics call eudaimonia. Not pleasure, but flourishing. Not applause, but alignment with your deepest values. So the next time the mirror whispers that you're not enough, answer it with a different voice. One that says, I may be overlooked, I may be doubted, but I will not be broken, because my worth is not something the world gives me. It's something I choose every day by how I live, how I speak, and how I hold myself in silence. Your worth is not a number, it's a decision. Decide to be unshakable. Building the man the world can't shrink. In the silence after the pain, after the surgeries, after the scrolling through highlight reels of taller men, after the awkward dates where your height was the first thing measured, what remains? That is the beginning. That's where the real man begins to take shape. Not in the frame others see, but in the framework you build within. You don't need to break bones to become someone worth respecting. You need to break patterns. The pattern of seeking approval like a hungry ghost. The pattern of believing worth is something external, granted by swipes, compliments, or jealous stares. You need to break the mirror, not because it lied, but because it never told the whole truth. A man becomes tall when he no longer fears being small. He grows in presence when he refuses to shrink himself to fit a trend. And ironically, it's often the one most overlooked, the one passed by, underestimated, laughed at, who builds the deepest strength. Because he had to. He had to look inward when the world looked away. He had to fight the war within when no one else noticed he was bleeding. He had to become his own foundation. Unseen by many, but unshakable by any. This isn't poetic optimism. It's ancient truth. The kind carved in the hearts of warriors who walk through storms, not salons. The kind whispered by philosophers who ruled themselves before they ruled empires. Stoicism doesn't offer false promises. It doesn't tell you the world is fair, or that you'll never feel envy again, or that being a good man will make everyone treat you right. No, it offers something better. It dares you to stop chasing illusions and start standing still. In presence, in clarity, in command, not of others, but of yourself. He is most powerful who has power over himself. Seneca. That kind of power doesn't shout, it doesn't posture, it doesn't beg to be seen, it simply is. And in that quiet power, you become something the world can't shrink. You become something no shallow comment, no dating app filter, no backhanded joke can touch. You become a force, because you've removed the need to prove. And let me tell you something most men never hear. If you are 5'5" and walk into a room with focus in your eyes, purpose in your stride, and calm in your breath, the room will notice, not because of your height, but because of your gravity. Because men who know who they are don't ask the world for permission. They don't try to be louder, they simply are more. And that more doesn't come from extra inches. It comes from deeper roots. You build those roots by keeping promises to yourself, by showing up when no one claps, by choosing restraint over reaction, patience over panic, discipline over drama. The man who does that, whether he's tall or short, is already above the rest, because while others reach for status, he reaches for mastery, and no surgery can create that. So if you're watching this thinking you need to be more, maybe what you need is less. Less comparison, less noise, less chasing, strip it all away, and build from stillness. That's where the unshrinkable man is born, not through what the world gives you, but through what it can't take away. You want to feel tall? Then live tall. Speak with purpose, love with integrity, act with courage, and hold yourself like someone who knows their value was never up for negotiation. Because in the end, the mirror may lie, the culture may mislead, but your soul, it never does. So the real question is not how tall are you? It's how deep is your foundation? You've made it this far for a reason. You're not here to be more liked. You're here to be more unshakable. So stay with me, because in the next part, we'll show you how to live that truth, not just hear it. Let's keep building the man the world can't shrink. You don't need to be taller. You need to be wiser, voice-over pacing, calm, clear, weighty. You were never lacking, not for inches, not for value, not for the right to stand tall in your own life. From the moment you were born, you carried the capacity for strength, not the kind that's measured by rulers or admired in mirrors, but the kind that outlasts storms. That doesn't waver when no one's clapping. That shows up, not to be seen, but because it's needed. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to remember yourself. Let that land. Short pause. Not upgrade, not enhance. Remember who you are when no one is watching, when no algorithm is choosing you, when no one hands you applause or affection or attention. That version of you, still, clear, unbothered, is the man you were meant to become. Because in the end, the man who knows himself can never truly be diminished, no matter who overlooks him, no matter how tall the others stand. The man who leads himself walks into any room already full. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't need permission. He doesn't beg the world to see him, and yet they do. Because the quiet dignity of a man who walks in self-command is magnetic. He doesn't need to perform strength. He simply is it. And that is the Stoic path. Walk tall, not because the world gives you permission, but because you give yourself purpose. You're not too short. You're just getting started. Let go of the tape measure. Measure yourself by how still you can be in chaos, by how honest you can be in private, by how much you keep showing up without applause. Be the man who leads himself first. The world doesn't owe you validation. It never did. But you owe yourself something deeper: discipline, self-respect, clarity, peace. So stand up, not in height, but in spirit, because in a loud world, a man who moves in silence and strength can never be ignored. Rehook, gentle, reflective tone. The taller man isn't the one who's seen more. It's the one who sees more and still chooses to rise. If this message stirred something in you, then maybe it's time to stop waiting for the world to change and start becoming the man the world can't ignore. One breath at a time, one quiet choice at a time. If you're walking that path, you're not alone. Subscribe, not for me, but for you. For the quiet reminders, for the discipline you're in building, for the fire you refuse to let go cold. Because the world needs fewer loud men and more steady ones.